All right, welcome everybody. My name is Erin McGroarty. Thanks so much for joining us tonight for this forum featuring the Democratic candidates for Senate District 16. Um, I am the other political reporter here at the Cap Times, and in just a moment, I'll be handing it over to Andrew, who also covers state government and politics here. But I wanted to take a moment to thank you all who are watching live or perhaps watching a recording of this later on our website. If you're looking for more information about this race or others in Wisconsin between now and elections, be sure to visit captimes.com and click on the Elections 2024 logo. That'll be a good place to find coverage of races, information about how to vote or how to register to vote, anything you might need to know going into this election. Another great way to keep up on what's happening politically here in Wisconsin is to subscribe to our free politics newsletter, Wedge Issues, which Andrew and I write and send out each Friday. It's got short recaps of our coverage of the past week, plus links to a lot of great other political coverage from around the state. So to access that, you can just visit captimes.com/newsletters to sign up. But we've got a lot to cover with the candidates tonight. So without further delay, I'm going to turn the forum over to Andrew, who covers state government here at the Cap Times. Welcome, Andrew.
Hey, thanks, Aaron. As promised, I am Andrew Bahl, one half of the Cat Times State Government and Politics team, and I will be your moderator this evening. This is the fifth of six forums from the Cap Times that we will be hosting for each of the contested primary races for the state assembly and state senate seats that are representing Dane County and will be on the ballot on August 13th. And a lot of these districts changed under new legislative maps that were enacted earlier this year. So we really want to make sure you all, the viewers and readers out there, have the information you need when you head to the polls. We are obviously live on Zoom right now, but a recording will be posted on our website sometime in the next day or so. So if you have to miss part of this or you want to share with a friend, you will definitely be able to come back and rewatch. We are joined tonight by the three candidates in the Democratic primary for the 16th Senate District: State Representative Jimmy Anderson, State Representative Samba Baldeh, and State Representative Melissa Ratcliff. The 16th District includes all of Cambridge, Cottage Grove, Deerfield, Fitchburg, Marshall, and Sun Prairie, the southern portion of McFarland, and parts of Dodge and Jefferson counties. That is a mouthful. Voters in all of those places will be headed to the polls on August 13th. As Aaron said, please head to captimes.com and get all the information you need there. And this race is really important because the winner will be the next representative for the 16th district, as I don't believe there is a Republican candidate on the general election ballot. Each of our candidates will get 2 minutes for their opening and closing statements. And in between, I'll be asking them questions on a variety of issues important to our readers. And a lot of these topics were actually areas that we heard about from readers when Aaron and I had in-person listening sessions and an online survey that we did to ask Dane County residents what they most wanted to hear about in this election cycle. Because we have three candidates tonight, not every candidate will be asked every question, except for two questions that I do have for all three of them. But each candidate can weigh in for up to 1 minute or up to 4 times if they have something they want to add to the conversation or a topic they are particularly passionate about. So before starting, we randomly determined the order of the opening statements, and Representative Samba Baldeh was the lucky winner and guessing what number I was thinking of. So Representative Baldeh, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement starting now.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you to the Cap Times for putting this together, Erin and Andrew for moderating it, and to my fellow candidates, Melissa Ratcliff and also Jimmy Anderson, my fellow representative at the Capitol. This is really, really important. It's the core of democracy. My name is Samba Baldeh. I am an immigrant from the West African nation of the Gambia. I have lived here for more than 2 decades as a software engineer. What I did when I came here was basically to focus on my education, but also integrating myself into the community. And how did I get to integrate myself into the community? Is through volunteering. So over the last 2 decades, I have been a big brother, going to schools and mentoring young people, helping them navigate this very complex United States, but also complex world. I volunteered with Habitat for Humanity. I first came to the United States as a result of an invitation from the former president of the United States, Jimmy Carter. And so I value his work, I value his vision for the world. And so I've been volunteering as a Habitat for Humanity volunteer. I am also a volunteer with the AIDS Network. So for the past 20 years or so, I have been helping with people with HIV and AIDS, taking them to appointments, doing groceries and doing laundry and things like that. So this is how I knew my community. This is how I get connected. This is how I became an American. But who am I now? I am a small business owner now. I just opened a grocery store in the far eastern part of the city of Madison, a former stripper club, and converted it to a grocery store in a neighborhood that is considered food desert. I also have apartment units that I rent only to people who are struggling the most in terms of having access to rent. So what things, a few things are important that I want to bring into the introduction is educating our kids and educating them with quality education. It's really important. People are struggling with healthcare. That is also a high priority. So I will work hard to address these barriers for all people.
Representative Ratcliff, you are up next, and your 2 minutes starts now.
Thank you, Andrew, Aaron, and the CAP Times for hosting this forum. I'm Melissa Ratcliff, state representative and running for State Senate District 16. My background and experience are the best fit for this new Senate District 16. I'm a working mom with 2 teenagers who knows firsthand the challenges our families face. I'll always fight for reproductive rights and access to abortion. I'll bring my proven track record of getting results, fighting for our shared values, and working tirelessly for the communities that I serve to the state Senate. I've lived in small towns and rural communities like those in District 16. Having been born in Green Bay, go Packers, grew up right outside of Wausau, which is 2 hours north of here, and I moved down to this area after high school. I've lived in Waterloo, which is in Jefferson County, before moving to the village of Cottage Grove, where I live now. I used to work a 3rd shift warehouse job while I went to school during the day to earn my paralegal certificate, which I was a paralegal at the same law firm for more than 24 years until recently when I retired from the job. Before I was elected to the assembly, I served on the Cottage Grove Village Board and the Dane County Board, and I worked to form the Cottage Grove Action Team that got out the vote every election. Being on those boards and my background gives me a unique perspective. I bring a combination of experience, determination, focus, and willingness to roll up my sleeve to get the things done that need to be to the Senate. With these new maps, we need leaders who can change the face of the Senate in the years to come. I've earned the endorsement of more than 100 current and former elected officials throughout the district, including Dane County Executive Kathleen Falk and Joe Parisi, and former Fitchburg Mayor Francis Huntley Cooper. In the Senate, I'll continue to fight for access to abortion, investing in our public schools, protecting our environment, expanding healthcare, increasing access to broadband, and support for our LGBTQI+ communities, and supporting the needs of our rural communities. And I hope to earn the votes of those watching. Thank you.
And Representative Anderson, last but not least, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. Again, thank you to the Cap Times for doing this, and thank you to Samba and Melissa for joining us here today. I grew up in a middle-class home. My mother was a Mexican immigrant. My dad was a union truck driver. And I remember how proud they were when I went to college. I was the first to actually graduate from college in my family. I came to Wisconsin to go to law school, but through my 2nd and 3rd years of law school, while visiting my family, out to celebrate my birthday, in fact, I was hit by a drunk driver. And I lost my mom, my dad, my little brother, and I was paralyzed in that accident. And while going through that experience, I got to see firsthand just how broken our healthcare system was. My insurance tried to kick me off my plan And if it wasn't for the Affordable Care Act, I don't know if I'd be here today. So it inspired me to run for office. I was elected in 2016, and it's been the honor of my life to be the 47th Assembly District representative for the last 8 years. And throughout my time in the legislature, I have focused on expanding access to affordable health care, fully funding our schools from childcare through college, protecting our environment, restoring reproductive rights in Wisconsin, and making our state just a little friendlier for folks with disabilities. Now, I believe I'm the best choice for the state Senate race here for two main reasons. First, I believe experience is important. I have more experience than the other two people running in this race combined in the state legislature. So if we end up with a majority, which I'm really hoping we do, I want to be able to squeeze every drop out of it. And I believe that I have the connections and the relationships inside that building to get things done. And second, I believe in the ideals of representative democracy. 20% of our state has a disability, but I'm the only one in the building that has a significant disability. That allows me to see things differently, allows me to attack legislation in different ways. I think it makes me a better legislator to be able to represent a group of people whose voice often goes unheard. Thank you.
Well, thank you to all of you. And we're going to start off with a question. And all three of you noted you are currently serving in the state assembly. That makes this race a little bit unique. Contrary to what some people that I talk to think, not everyone in the state legislature is an automaton who behaves exactly the same way. So we're going to start with Representative Ratcliff on this question, but I'm curious if you all can point to an example of work that you've done in the state assembly that you think makes you stand out in this race and makes you the best choice to represent the 16th Senate District.
Thank you for that question. So I'm a fighter for our shared values. And if there's a chance to find common ground on an issue, I'll work across the aisle. An example, I wrote a bill that would have closed the campaign finance loophole as the Democratic author of a bill. In our polarized legislature, that usually means that a bill is not going to get heard. But I worked hard to garner support, and the bill passed through the Assembly Committee on campaigns and elections and garnered bipartisan support. It also had a hearing in the Senate as well. So members of the committee, Republicans and Democrats, voted in support of it unanimously out of the committee. Another area that's important is expanding access to broadband. And so we can have conversations with those throughout our state about the importance of broadband and working towards bringing broadband throughout our state. And so working across the aisle is important, and things that we can do with the other side. Thank you.
And Representative Anderson, that same question for you.
Yeah, thank you. The first thing that comes to mind was, during my time in the legislature, I asked for some disability accommodations. I needed to be able to call into hearings, something that our current state senators who are able-bodied are allowed to do. So I went to Speaker Voss and I asked for those disability accommodations, and he said no. And not only was Voss violating the Americans with Disabilities Act, but he was disenfranchising the people that I represented. And so I went on conservative media, I went on TV, I wrote letters, I did everything that I could to make sure that the people of Wisconsin would know what Robin Voss was up to and why it was wrong. And we won that fight. And I'm proud to be probably the only Democrat to say that I got Robin Voss to do something that he did not want to do. It is indicative of my fighting spirit. It is indicative of my willingness to do whatever it takes in order to properly represent the people that are in my district. And I will say that the accommodations that we got put into the assembly rules will make it easier for all individuals with disabilities to be able to run for office one day. And so something that I'm incredibly proud of, and I think is a good indication of how much of a fighter I am for the people of the 47th and hopefully of the 16th Senate District.
And Representative Baldeh, that same question over to you.
All right. Well, thank you. An excellent question. One thing I think we should note is that all of us are Democrats, and basically, whatever went to the governor's desk, almost all of us have signed on to that. So let's that be very clear. So that doesn't mean we have not fought for something totally, completely different from the things that we sent to the governor's office. Also, I want to make this very clear. I've served in elected government for a decade now, and so I have the experience. I serve at the Madison City Council for 6 years. At some point, I was the council president. So that speaks to my leadership and also how I can bring people together around these issues that are very, very important to us and our communities. We run as Democrat or Republicans, or sometimes as independent. But these issues do not know Democrat or Republican or independent. They are our issues. And so what have I been doing since I get elected at the Capitol, for example? I was the lead author of the PFAS bill. PFAS are never dying chemicals that are found in our ground, the food that we eat, and the water that we drink. Made budget recommendation to the governor to make sure that we have some remediation funding to address some of this stuff. What else did I do? The prison system is a problem. The United States spent about $1.5 billion on prisons. We need to reform our prison system to make sure that we are not sending people to prison for technical reasons or things that has to do with being late at appointments and things like that. So what else did I do? Our kids are important to me. Education is what I've been advocating, but also funding to local government. So my time is up, but just want to say these are very important issues. And I'm sure the fact that we are all Democrats, we are fighting for the same thing. But what makes me unique is being an immigrant, for example, and all the business and personal experience that I've had.
Well, and a couple of you touched on this in your responses, and Representative Anderson, we're going to start with you for this next question. But what is one example of work that you did reaching across the aisle, bipartisan work in your tenure in the state assembly that, in what very well might be a very, almost 50-50 split in the state Senate ultimately makes you well positioned to navigate that environment?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. Funnily enough, I've been pushing for what's called a spinal cord injury research program. So basically a bill that brings together a consortium of states to be able to try to research issues related to spinal cord injuries or rehabilitative equipment. And happy to have introduced it every term, and every term I've gotten a little bit further along and getting Republican co-sponsors, and we've got it all the way up to a vote actually this time around. And I remember during the last week of the term, I went to Speaker Boss, and we sat down at the table and we had a conversation. And I showed him the value of the bill, why it is that it's important, why people can be supported with it. And he put it on the floor and it passed the assembly. This is someone that I've had a very contentious relationship with, but I think it shows my ability to put things aside when necessary and to be able to work with Republicans when there's some good to be had. Even someone like Robin Boss, who I've had a real contentious relationship with. So, I was very proud of that piece of legislation, and I'm proud to be able to work across the aisle as long as it is in the best interest of the people of the 16th Senate District.
And Representative Baldeh, that same question on bipartisan lawmaking, over to you. I think you are still, yep.
Yeah. We talked about working across the aisle. Look, I am a software engineer. That's what I did for 2 decades. My interest in politics is public service. I do not see Republicans and Democrats when it comes to these issues. I see people. And so I have worked across the aisle and talked to people about the issues that I care about. The recent bill that I sponsored through the Capitol was a cancer breast reconstruction. And my co-sponsor on that bill is a Republican. So I talk to everybody because what I bring to the table is really, really leadership. And we have to stop politicians from being kids that we see on television every night. We have to be serious about these issues. We cannot be divided as leaders. As leaders, we got to inspire people to come together and make sure that this America continue to be a better country. This Wisconsin continue to be a better state for all of us. This divide and conquer and these petty conversations among politicians It's why I hate politics. I have to be there just to serve and make sure that people have access to the government and they are represented as they're supposed to be. So what I've been able to do is really reach out to the other side of the aisle. And that would be even better this time around, the fact that the maps are redrawn. Now we are all forced to be grown-up politicians and address the issues that people care about. Our senior citizens are hoarding. Housing is becoming expensive and affordable for most for many of our people. These are the things that we need to focus on, not the political bickering and gossip and things like that.
And Representative Ratcliff, that same question to you.
Thanks. In addition to, it's about relationships, right? Like bipartisan support is about the relationships that you build. As a working mom of 2 teenagers, it's about relationships, understanding different perspectives. And with my experience being on the village board in Cottage Grove, being elected 3 times there and 3 times to the Dane County board, which is nonpartisan, knowing that you have to work with all different people from different backgrounds and representing different areas to get things done for the communities that you serve. That's why it's important to build relationships, and that's why it's important to be out talking with voters as well about the issues that matter to the people that you represent, which is what I have been doing. As you build those relationships and understand the differences in not only your community, but in other areas, you're able to then work to find common ground, which is how broadband became such a big issue for me to work on, because accessing broadband is also a rural issue as well as a urban issue with affordability, which makes it inaccessible sometimes. And this is why we can work across the aisle to get broadband expansion done. So building relationships is really important and what I have been doing throughout my time.
Well, thank you all for that. And now we're going to move into some of the questions on more policy-specific areas. A reminder, I am going to address these to a particular candidate, but each candidate gets up to 4 times. They can raise their hand and chime in for up to a minute. And we're going to start with Representative Baldeh. This is possibly the issue that we've heard the most from our readers, and I imagine you all hear it quite a bit on the campaign trail. But the question is, should the legislature set any limits on abortion access beyond the restrictions currently in state law?
So the simple answer is no. So I grew up in a country where democracy and freedom is not easy to come by. So for me, the reproductive right is a human right issue. So there shouldn't be any limitation. Women should do what they want to do with their bodies. Women should do what they want to do with themselves. If anything, the Republican Party is known for saying small government and get out of my closet or something, get government out of my closet. So women should be able to do what they think is right for them, just like men do what is right for them. And so, no, I don't think there should be restriction. If there is an issue where the mother is in no restriction at all. I mean, I think women should do what they should do to protect themselves, but also deal with their reproductive right. That should be between them and their doctors, between them and their families, not between them and their government. Government is supposed to stay out of this completely. What I would advocate to do when I get elected is to reinstate Roe v. Wade. We cannot be complacent around these issues. For over 15 years, Roe v. Wade was the law of the land, just until when it became not the law of the land. So these are things that are important to me. The freedom to be who we are, whether you are gay, lesbian, or straight, whatever it is that you are, you should be able to do that. I didn't immigrate here very lightly. I immigrated here, leaving my parents, my siblings, everything that I knew to come to this country because of its values and what it provides. So I will continue to advocate for that. And that's what I think Americans should continue to advocate for and hold us accountable as elected officials.
And Representative Ratcliff, I see your hand is up. 1 minute to weigh in on this.
Thank you. Abortion is health care. We need to repeal the 1849 law that criminalized abortion in our state. We need to defend and protect access to abortion. I have 2 children, and I can't believe that they have less rights than I did. It's unthinkable that this is happening in our United States, in Wisconsin. And so women and those with uteruses should have access to all the care that they need without politicians being in the physician's office with them. It's between a person and their doctor what health care they need. Thank you.
And Representative Anderson, your hand is up as well. My questions are so good. Everyone wants to weigh in. You have a minute as well.
Thank you. I agree with my colleagues here that the decision should actually be between a woman and her doctor. One thing that I do think that they don't talk about, and I think it's really important, is, Representative Baldeh talked about bringing Roe v. Wade back into the law. We need to go beyond that. We need to pass a constitutional amendment to ensure that we protect abortion rights, contraception rights, and family planning, including IVF. It's not enough to sit there and just put it into the law. We have to make sure it's enshrined in our Constitution, so that way, no matter what happens at the governor level or at the legislative level, women will have the right to have abortions or have family planning or the care that they need. This is the only way to properly enshrine that. I think it's important that we talk about that.
Representative Ratcliff, this next question is for you. What do you see as the biggest economic issue facing Dane County, and what should the legislature and the state senate do about it?
Childcare is the biggest economic factor that the state legislature can have an impact on. Childcare providers are the workforce behind the workforce. The lack of affordable and safe childcare has enormous negative economic effects on our families and our economy. I was honored to speak at a rally earlier this summer organized by We Can, which is Wisconsin Education Career Access Network, which is a group of moms, providers, and families that advocate for more investment in childcare. I mean, the childcare crisis in Wisconsin costs Wisconsin families, businesses, and government about $1.9 billion. That's billing with a B every year. So the current situation is holding Wisconsin back, harming our children, stunting our economic growth, perpetuating disparities. There's not enough childcare providers, tuition costs are rising, and wages, which are already too low for childcare providers, have to be cut. So we need to bring stakeholders together, businesses, employers, government, educators, local communities, and recognize that childcare should be supported and sustained like other core services. One-time funding is helping, but it's not a long-term solution. So we need to make greater, more sustainable investments in childcare and work collaboratively on a solution with public and private sectors involved.
Representative Anderson, this next question will be for you. Oh, real quick. Representative Baldeh, I see you're raising your hand. A minute to weigh in on the number one economic issue.
Yeah, so I think this is such an important question. I needed to weigh on it a little bit. So beyond the childcare, which is the biggest ticket on our bills these days, is housing. America is the richest country in the whole world. We cannot afford to have our people not to be able to afford rent or buy homes. We must be able to house our people. The other thing that is very important, the housing, say for example, the housing market is broken. Affordability and access is unimaginable. This is why I converted my building, the second floor, to be apartment. And the only people I house are ex-felon or people who are struggling the most. The other thing that is most important is educating our kids. The future of America, the future of the state of Wisconsin depends on our people. If we cannot afford childcare, how can we educate our kids? If we don't educate our kids, how do we compete with the rest of the world? America got to pay attention to what the rest of the world is paying attention to. And that is to make sure that we are competitive in the next 100, in the next 200, in the next 1,000 years to come. And the only way we can do that is by educating our kids.
Thank you all for that. Just a reminder, folks, if you wouldn't mind keeping your remarks to the allotted time, that would be much appreciated because we have a lot of questions. Representative Anderson, next one is for you. Wisconsin has not raised the minimum wage since 2009. It sits at $7.25 for hourly workers. Should the legislature pursue that? And if so, what dollar amount should the minimum wage be set at?
Yeah, the idea that we're still sitting at 7.25 an hour is unconscionable. It's a disgrace to our state. No one can survive off of living off of $7.25 an hour. Now, I've been fighting for this long enough that we've been fighting for what we call a living wage. And some of that with the fight for 15. And I think we've been fighting for the fight for 15 so long that it's no longer 15. It's probably closer to $17 an hour. But what I think is most important is establishing a minimum wage at a state level, but allowing counties to be able to have the ability to determine for themselves what is a more reflective minimum wage for their area. So, Dane County and Milwaukee County are much more expensive than other parts of the state. So finding ways for our counties to be able to have their own individual minimum wage and they're not restricted by the state from doing so. So I think the minimum wage was probably somewhere between $17 and $20 an hour, but again, it depends on where you live and the cost of living in your community. So finding a way. Oh, the other most important part of this is that when we set the minimum wage, we have to make sure that it's pegged to inflation. That way, Republicans can't do what they did now and just sit on it until it becomes no longer a living wage. So making sure that minimum wage gets those bumps every time we see raises in inflation. And I think the last few years has shown just how important that is.
This next question, Representative Baldeh is raising his hand. Go ahead. You have 1 minute on this.
Thank you, Andrew. This too is a very, very important question, the minimum wage. Like I alluded to earlier, this is the richest country in the whole world. I think what the wage should be, we smart and intelligent people in this country, we shouldn't pay people when they cannot buy food, pay a place to rent, and wear clothes and house themselves. We shouldn't be talking about minimum wage. These are the things that America is still struggling with. The other countries are settled. I came from a developing country where minimum wage is not the conversation. When you are employed, at least you can provide yourself food, housing, and shelter. So for me, the minimum wage should be history. We should pay people well so they can do these three basic human rights things. The other thing is our senior citizens are being poor. They are retired on fixed income. Housing is becoming expensive. Food is becoming expensive. So it's not only minimum wage, but how do we treat each other as communities, as people, so that we are all, my time is up and I want to respect your advice early. Thank you.
We appreciate that. And I'm coming right back at you with a question, though, so don't go too far. Republicans last session proposed a bill that would restrict camping on public land and restrict the ability of local governments to access state grant funding to address homelessness. In your mind, is homelessness an issue that should be handled at a fundamentally local level, or is there a role for the state to play as well? And if so, what should that look like?
Homelessness is an American, the United States problem. It's a state-by-state problem. It's our problem, all of us. So to solve that problem, everybody got to be at the table. The local unit of government, councils, municipalities got to be part of the solution. Counties must be part of the solution. The state must be part of the solution, and also the federal government. So again, like I said, it is important that we fund local government, because right now, most of the homelessness issue is dealt by the local government. And so as a member of the local government committee at the state level, as a lead member, I advocated for shared revenue to make sure that local government are able to tackle some of these challenges, including homelessness. So it is all our responsibility, whether you are in the county government, whether you are in state government, federal government, it is all our problem. If I am homeless here, and I know that Minnesota, for example, has a place for me to stay, I'll go there. So the United States is one country. We have the states that has no barriers to an extent we cannot move around. So all of us are responsible to making sure that no Americans sleep outside. And every American has access to quality housing, quality food, and a quality environment as a matter of reality. So no, I totally disagree with Republicans. And these spaces are all our spaces. These are public spaces. We pay taxes to create these good spaces. So thank you for that question.
Thank you. And Representative Ratcliff, this next question will be for you. The Wisconsin legislature has not voted to legalize marijuana in any form. In your mind, should they change that next session? And what should legislators really be prioritizing and keeping in mind when handling this issue? I think we are going to hit pause for a second and come back to that question. And in the meantime, Representative Anderson, I do have a question for you as well. We've been talking a bit about maps tonight and the new maps that were enacted earlier this year, but looking forward, should the state legislature implement some sort of nonpartisan entity to draw lines for the United States Congress, the state legislature, or both?
Yeah, I think that we absolutely need to do an independent redistricting model, similar to the one that Iowa's done. I think that there's probably no issue that might be more important than the issue of map drawing and redistricting, primarily because, as we've seen, when Republicans do the redistricting, they gerrymander themselves into power no matter what the public wants. We've seen these elections where they're close to 50-50 splits, and yet the legislature is entirely skewed towards the Republican side. And that's just indicative of the fact that our technology has gotten so good that we can now design maps that have pretty good certainty that each individual district will go a certain way, one way or another. So in order to protect our democracy, we need to ensure that we have an independent redistricting model so that way we get the politicians out of the room, make sure that the people that are appointed are not political appointees, and ensure that we bring in the public to make sure that they're a part of this process as well. So that way they can see how the sausage is made, is I think the cliche that we often hear when talking about politics. So yeah, no, I think we absolutely need an independent redistricting model that gets the power out of the hands of the politicians, so that way they don't just sit there and reward themselves to the detriment of the people and to the detriment of our democracy.
Well, and Representative Baldeh is raising his hand. I'm give him 60 seconds to chime in. I believe you're still muted, Representative.
Yeah, sorry about that. So I just, I just said Jimmy hit the nail on the head. So Democrats in the state of Wisconsin have been winning about 53% of the votes and getting less than half of the representation at the Capitol. So democracy is important. And one way to do that is to really make sure that we have maps that are representative of what the people think they should do. It's not different from all this endorsement from everybody running. Instead of running to the voters and making a case to them, it's the same thing. So I am 100% in support of an independent group that has nothing to do with politicians to draw our maps. And that's why I supported whatever map that came before me at the Capitol that was presented by an independent group of people.
Representative Ratcliff, welcome back. So sorry about that. I can repeat the question and we can come back to you if you like on marijuana. So
is that where you're at, marijuana?
Well, that was the question that was going to be for you, and then
Okay.
we had some technical issues. So I will.
Yes, I apologize. I apologize for my bad internet, which is why I'm such a champion for broadband.
That was nice. That was a nice segue there. So the state legislature has not voted to legalize cannabis in any form. Should they change that next session? And if so, what should legislators be really prioritizing and focusing on when handling this issue?
Thank you. And I apologize for my technical difficulties. Yes, Wisconsin should legalize marijuana, both recreational and medicinal use. There's important things that we do need to focus on when it is legalized, though. Uh, we need to make sure that we expunge possession charges and the tax formula. We want to make sure that we're benefiting economically like Minnesota and Michigan have, where I think it's millions of dollars that those states have gotten from Wisconsinites, right? And we need to keep that in our state, but we need to make sure that we're doing it effectively. And there were bills this past term that I co-sponsored, which would help develop a regulatory framework to test for impurities, harmful byproducts, et cetera, of cannabis as well. So thank you for that question.
And we're going to go back to Representative Baldeh. Oh, yes, back to Representative Baldeh with this next question, which is, how can the state ensure that police departments across Wisconsin and across Dane County are fair and just in how they carry out their duties and do not engage in racial profiling?
Yeah. So first of all, I think we have to fund them enough to include training. I think training our police officers to understand the communities that they are policing is really, really important. So that is one thing that we need to do. Police officers got to know that they are there to serve people, to make sure that everybody is safe and comfortable around their presence and things like that. So the first thing that I'll do is to make sure that they are well funded to an extent that they are trained to understand different cultures. So when I immigrated here, one of the first things that I did with the Madison Police Department was to bring them to my immigrant community and help them understand what our culture is. In my country, when the police officer stops you, you can get out of your car and go and have a conversation with them and nothing happens. In the United States, in the state of Wisconsin, you cannot do that. So educating our law enforcement officers to understand our communities, and it doesn't matter, even here in our own state of Wisconsin, each community has their little culture and how they deal with stuff. And so it is important that we know each other, we understand each other, we police each other, trusting each other. So that is really important in my opinion.
And Representative Ratcliff, we're going to go back to you for this next question. There's been a lot of talk about the investments and policies that are being enacted at a federal level to try and fight climate change. But in your mind, what is the biggest thing that the state and the state legislature can do to enact change on this important issue?
So much that we can do. Our failure to adequately confront climate change in our state and slow it down is having terrible consequences right now and threatens the future of our children and their children. I'm honored to have been named a conservation champion by the Wisconsin Conservation Voters for my work in the Assembly, and I support Governor Evers' focus on meeting ambitious goals for Wisconsin and sustainability. Just today, I was at a press conference in my district in Sun Prairie with the unveiling of their new solar field at the wastewater treatment facility. And Sun Prairie is on pace to reach their goal of 100% of their municipal operations being powered by renewable energy by 2025, just like Dane County did in 2023, becoming the first county in Wisconsin to receive 100% of its energy from renewable resources with the completion of the Yahara solar project, which is in the town of Cottage Grove in my district. So environmental sustainability, the focus on using resources wisely now and in prioritizing how our actions affect future generations is addressed in Wisconsin's climate action plan and clean energy plan. So there are things that we can be doing, and we need to become environmental leaders on this issues, just like Dane County and Sun Prairie have done, to show businesses and our residents the importance of investing in our climate and in our future. So I'll continue to be a champion of environmental justice to ensure that our actions and policies do not disproportionately affect our people and communities of color either.
And Representative Anderson, a minute to you to weigh in on climate change.
Thank you. Similarly, I was proud to receive my fourth Conservation Champion Award from the League Conservation Voters. Uh, I've been on the Environment Committee all 8 years I've been in the legislature. It's been the committee that I've fought to get on because I know how important it is that we tackle climate change. Now, asking what's the one thing that we can do is kind of like saying, what would you rather have, food, air, or water? Uh, I kind of reject the question. We need to tackle it in every way possible. We need renewable energy projects, like Representative Ratcliff had mentioned, with like solar. We need more wind farms. I was proud to be a co-sponsor of the Forward on Climate package, which includes bold investments in things like weatherization, carbon sequestration programs, green jobs that would build a new manufacturing program here in Wisconsin. We need to do it all because, as we see, it gets hotter every day, and it's not going to turn around until we start taking the action to reverse climate change.
And Representative Baldeh has his hands up as well. And Representative, just so you know, this is your fourth and final hand raising occasion, but a minute to you on climate change.
All right. Well, thank you. I think this is also another important issue that I need to chime in a little bit. I'm also a recipient of the Conservation Championship. This is the second time I've received it since I've been at the Capitol. So global warming is for real. Climate change is for real. One thing that we can do for future generations, for our kids, is to make sure that we do not destroy this planet for them. It's becoming very difficult to live anywhere in the United States with the extreme heat, and not the United States, I mean the whole world, with the extreme heat all over the place. So I have been a champion of that, from the city council where I served for 6 years to the state capital where I have served now for 4 years. The climate change is for real, and it also doesn't know any borders. This is why we, particularly as a leading nation in the whole world, should take lead on this and take it very seriously. I will be a champion, just like I have been over the last 10 years.
This next question is for Representative Anderson. And should the state end its school choice programs in Milwaukee, Racine, and statewide? And if so, should those funds be reinvested in public K through 12 education?
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I do believe that public schools should be the focus. Right now, we've seen community after community throughout the 16th Senate district have to go to referendum over and over again just to keep their public schools open. That ends up raising property taxes, and it's really harmful for especially our senior residents who are on fixed incomes. And it makes absolutely no sense given the fact that we're sitting on a multi-billion-dollar surplus. We have the money here to be able to address our public schools and to fix the problems that are facing our communities. We also need to do everything we can in order to deal with the issues around special education funding. I'm proud to be the lead author of a bill that would increase the reimbursement rate from 33% all the way up to 90%. I have spoken to so many people at the doors who work in special education, talking about how they don't have the resources, the staff, things that they need in order to provide the support for people with disabilities. And it's heartbreaking because they have to draft an individualized plan for each of these students. And they say, here's what you need. But then they say, but here's what we can provide. I don't think that's right. I think we need to make sure that we focus on our public schools and that we do what we can with that surplus in order to make sure that every public school gets the resources they need to thrive.
And Representative Ratcliff, I see your hand is up. A minute to you to weigh in on this.
Thank you. I do not support using public money to pay for private voucher schools. I'm a product of Wisconsin's public schools, as are both of my children. I remember when I was a kid and how highly we regarded our public education system here in Wisconsin. And public schools are the foundation of strong communities. And what's best for our kids is best for the future of our state. So public dollars should never be used for private entities that have no oversight of our taxpayer dollars. And that's what's happening with our private voucher schools. Additionally, private voucher schools have the opportunity to remove any child they don't feel like they can provide an education for, and that includes our LGBTQ youth and special needs youth. When they remove a child from their private voucher school, the child is then sent to public schools, but the private voucher school retains the public tax dollars for that student. And that's what's leaving gaping holes in our schools' budgets, and then that's being put on property owners to fund with referendums.
So this is going to be the final round of questions before we get into closing statements. And I'm going to go over to you, Representative Baldeh, for this one. It's pretty short and sweet, but an important issue. And that's, are there further changes needed to the shared revenue law that was passed in 2023?
Yes. So as a ranking member on local government, and somebody who served at the Madison City Council for 6 years, I understand local government and their challenges and their needs. So as part of this funding cycle, this past session, me and a colleague of mine sponsored an amendment to the legislative process to make sure that this is revisited again every 2 years. So it is important. Madison, for example, got just about $7 per person, while other communities got about $500 per person. So, it seems some biases here. Dane County is the economic engine of the state of Wisconsin, like it or not. Dane County and maybe Milwaukee County. And so we cannot just punish them for how they think or what they do as far as, funding. And so, yes, I think we should revisit this, change the formula to make sure that it is fair and equitable, particularly to our communities. This would give municipal leaders the opportunity to address some of these challenges as first contact of our population in terms of some of these challenges.
And Representative Ratcliff, a minute for you on shared revenue.
Thanks. So I was on the local government committee in the assembly since I served on the village board and county board. So many communities, including Madison, did not get its fair share in the bill that was passed. As someone who served on local government, I know our local communities need more support and funding, and they need to have the power to make the decisions that are best for them. Additionally, the funding that was passed had a maintenance of effort audit on them. So every municipality has to show where the additional funds are used, causing more burden to our already understaffed municipalities. The shared revenue bill as passed also contained a ban on diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, restrictions on conservation grants, restrictions on public health officials, a ban on advisory referenda. So we need to undo the very damaging parts of that bill too.
And Representative Ratcliff, we're going to stay with you for this next question. The 16th Senate District is just down the road from UW-Madison. So that makes this next question fitting. And that is declining state support for public higher ed the biggest barrier to the Universities of Wisconsin system's success? Or are there policy changes needed, either in the legislature or the Board of Regents, to ensure that the system is sustainable moving forward?
Thank you. So our UW system needs more funding from the legislature and less meddling. I've supported measures that increase funding to our UW system, and I've co-authored bills to make the university more affordable for students, such as a bill that would have created a grant program to close the gap between scholarships or grants that an eligible student received outside of this program and the full cost of tuition and fees. The UW system is an economic generator for our state. We need to invest in our UW system in order to support more students to come here and stay here in Wisconsin. For every $1 that the UW system that we invest in it, we get a $27 return on that $1. That makes smart sense fiscally. Cutting the funding for a program that earns $27 return, that doesn't make any sense. So we need a brain trust to stay here in our state, to contribute to our economy. And we want younger people to stay here, raise their families, and be a part of Wisconsin's economy. So our companies need more workers since there's a workforce shortage as well. So let's keep our UW system healthy and thriving by investing in it and our students.
And Representative Anderson, a minute to you on the UW.
Yeah, I think our UW system is the jewel of our state. It is an incredibly valuable commodity that if we invest in, we would see enormous returns from. But I honestly think that we ought to, at the state level, obviously put the funding back in that has been cut from the university system since back when Scott Walker was governor, and that was tens upon tens upon tens of millions of dollars. And what ends up happening is that our UW system ends up looking more for students that are going to be out of state or out of country because they can get more for their tuition dollars. I want to make sure that every Wisconsin resident, if they go to a UW system school, that they don't have to pay tuition. I believe that can be done. I think it's important to be done. We've seen it done in other states. And I think that every Wisconsin resident deserves the opportunity to go to a state school without having to deal with the burden of student debt that we've seen really put a chokehold on these younger generations.
Representative Anderson, we're going to stay with you for this final question. And it actually is a question I got from a reader who lives in the 16th Senate District. Adam, if you're watching, this one is for you. And he was wondering about what you think the legislature should do to expand access to affordable dental care. It's a bit of a specific issue, but everyone has probably gone for a teeth cleaning, and we definitely know in Wisconsin that there are access issues on this important topic.
Yeah, thank you. I just finished doing like a little Invisalign set, so I've been very used to seeing my dentist lately. But yeah, right now the idea that we disconnect dental and eye health from overall healthcare protections seems insane. The idea that you don't need your teeth or eyes in order to maintain a healthy system just doesn't make sense. So finding ways to make sure that if you get healthcare coverage, you're guaranteed to also get dental and eye care as well. In particular, we've seen some real significant issues with individuals on Badger Care to be able to get access to the dental care they need. There are some low-income clinics that provide that support in certain areas, but I've heard of people having to drive long distances in order to get that access. It's one of the places where I've actually worked with a Republican colleague when it comes to particularly dental care for children. So being able to first expand Medicaid, I think that's the first part that we need to do. Being able to bring home those hundreds of billions of dollars that Wisconsin taxpayers send to the federal government, bring them back here to the state of Wisconsin, and then use that money to expand access to things like dental care for those of us that are that use Medicaid, and then being able to put in those dollars to be able at the state level to ensure that dental care protections would be available for anyone who has healthcare coverage. I think is something that can be mandated at the state level.
And Representative Ratcliff, who doesn't love a good dental question? You get 1 minute to close us out.
Thank you. Dental care is health care too, right? And so it should be covered by all health insurances. Dental care impacts so many different parts of your health. And I actually had a constituent talk to me as a veteran that it's not covered by the VA as at all either. So this is an issue that I'm so glad that a constituent brought up and is being thought about. And we do need to take care of our residents and making sure that they can get the care that they need. And that includes dental care and vision as well. So expansion of Medicaid is really important, and making sure that all of our residents are able to get the care that they need, whether it's healthcare, dental care, vision, et cetera. Healthcare accessible and affordable is one of the priorities that I hear from people at doors.
Well, and thank you all for your responses. And we're going to get now into closing statements. And Representative Baldeh, the first opening statement, or we're going to do the debate all again, apparently. The first closing statement will be for you. So 2 minutes starting now.
All right, but like I said at the beginning, thank you to all of you for putting this together, but also to the viewers. for taking the time to listening to the potential next senator. This is what democracy is all about. And so, just a little bit on dental. I not only the expansion of Medicaid, but I think Medicare for all is an important thing, and it's important that you pay attention to who we are as candidates and read our records. Do not vote based off of what people are telling you to do. Read every record that is out there. Make an informed decision to vote. That is really important. So I always tell people when I go around, hold your elected official accountable. I want to ask something of you, which is to hold our legislators accountable. We, at this point in the democratic process, will come to your house and smile and say all this good stuff at you. But once we are done, we are back into our dungeon. For me, I want you to come to my office. I want you to call me. I want you to talk to me about the education that you care about. I want you to talk to me about the childcare that we all talked about. I want you to talk to me about making sure that we protect our democracy. I want you to come and talk to me about fair taxes so that we as a community are moving along together. This idea that, when it is election time, we come to you and tell you everything that you want to hear. Do not buy that. Step in, come to the office, share your concern and advocate for what is right. I want to be informed by what you are telling me. That is the best way to be your good representative. So thank you for everyone for tuning in. I am looking forward to being your next senator, and I humbly and ask for your vote come August 13. Thank you to Representative Jimmy Anderson and also to Representative Melissa Ratcliff for giving this democratic process another try, and all of you for moderating. Thank you.
Representative Ratcliff, over to you for your closing statement.
Thank you again. Thank you to my colleagues for being here and participating in this forum. I appreciated these questions to allow our district to learn more about us as candidates. Again, I'm Melissa Ratcliff. On August 13th, voters in the new Senate District 16 will elect a new state senator. I've been visiting with voters at their doors since January. They tell me they want someone who understands the district, who will fight for our shared values, and who knows firsthand how critical it is that we protect abortion rights. That's why I'm running, and that's who I am. I'm a fighter for our shared values. I'll never back down on protecting reproductive rights and access to abortion. I'm fighting for a better future for my 2 teenagers and all of our families and communities. My approach to public service has always been to focus on the interests of the people I serve. Before being elected to the Assembly, I served on the Cottage Grove Village Board and the Dane County Board. I have the experience, perspective, and proven track record to make positive change happen. That's why more than 100 elected leaders, past and current, throughout this legislative district are supporting me. They trust me to be responsive, energetic, and effective senator that the area needs and deserves. To learn more about my campaign, please visit ratcliffforsenate.com or follow me, Melissa Ratcliff, on Facebook. I ask for your vote on August 13th. Thank you.
And Representative Anderson, you have the last word.
Thank you. Thank you, Cap Pines, for having this, and thank you again, Samba, Melissa, for being with me tonight. When I go door to door and talk to folks, I share my story. Their first reaction often is then to talk about something that they've gone through, cancer diagnosis, losing a child, losing a job, dealing with eviction. And I think that people understand that those of us who go through significant pain are challenged in ways that are unique, that shape our lives and make us both stronger and weaker in certain ways. And when we have these conversations, I always, they sometimes feel bad because they don't think that their stories match mine. And I have to tell them it's not a competition to see who has the harder life. But what the role of government is to make sure that when you go through those difficult aspects of your life, that it's there to help you pick you back up. And that means that, make sure we have tenant protections for people that may be dealing with eviction, that we have guaranteed health care for people. So that way, when they do get that diagnosis, they get the care that they need. most importantly, preventative care to make sure that it doesn't happen to begin with, that we protect our environment so that we kids don't get asthma, that we provide good schools, child care, and college educations, so that way people are well educated and ready to tackle everything that life puts in front of them. I feel genuinely honored to have been able to be the representative of the 47th Assembly District for 8 years. And I think I have the experience and the effectiveness to be your state senator. And if you agree, I'd love if you go to jimmyforsenate.org to sign up for a yard sign, to volunteer, or to make a donation. And also, most importantly, just send me a message and tell me what it is that matters to you. Because I think that every story that I hear, every door that I knock on, every conversation I have makes me a better legislator because I can take your story to the legislature and make your priorities my goals. Thank you so much.
Representative Jimmy Anderson, Representative Samba Baldeh, and Representative Melissa Ratcliff are the three candidates running for State Senate District 16. We'd like to thank them all for joining us tonight, and thank you all for watching, either in real time or watching back on YouTube. Make sure to go vote on August 13th, and we will see you all for our final candidate forum on Tuesday for Assembly District 48. Thank you all, and have a great night.